Good people, this is the brand new Lenovo Legion Pro 7i, and compared to previous generations, it represents a completely new direction, one that makes the Pro 7 series a very different laptop versus the past. That also means the 2023 version takes a quantum leap forward in performance as well. There have been some huge changes here, guys. So in this video, with the support of Legion and Microsoft, since they provided us with the 7i's from 2021, 2022, and the new 2023 model, I'm going to take you through the changes and show in the last 3 years just how far we've come in terms of laptop design and gaming performance. Because with Intel's new 13th gen Raptor Lake CPUs and NVIDIA's RTX 4000 series, gaming laptops are getting pretty crazy. And yes, this one is actually available to buy. I'll leave links to that down in the description below. Also, expect our full review in the next few weeks, and think of this video as sort of like a guide in terms of what you could expect if you're planning on upgrading from an older 7 series gaming laptop to a newer one. Anyways, the most important thing to point out here is right now, the Pro 7i is replacing the standard 7i in Legion's lineup as the top dog gaming and creator-focused laptop. There's also the Pro 5i Gen 8 that's targeted towards a bit lower price points. So to set the stage, here are the specs of the 3 generations of laptops I'm comparing here. They're all pretty much almost top spec from last year. I'd say almost, since the 2023 model has an RTX 4080 and 32 gigs of memory, while Legion will end up offering 2 terabytes with an RTX 4090 combo this year too. The Gen 8 will also come with a choice of Windows 11 Home or Pro versions, along with a 3-month subscription for Xbox Game Pass. Now, like other years, controlling the Legion Pro 7i is done through Lenovo's straightforward and well-designed Vantage software. Here you can actually have control over all the power modes and a whole lot more. I should also mention that Legion's now equipping these laptops with the industry-first dedicated LA AI chip to power the AI Engine Plus software, and you can access that through Vantage software. Basically, over time, it uses machine learning to monitor gaming and app performance and gradually tune the laptop CPU and GPU. Now, since we've only had this thing for a few days, I wasn't able to see any real differences, but I might do a long-term review and report back what happens. It should be really interesting. Anyways, one of the biggest changes to the 2023 model is the ability to push maximum CPU and GPU power to an even higher point than in previous generations. And Legion did it without sacrificing temperatures or noise. You can really see that with the Intel Core i9-13900HX here. In performance mode, it gets some of the highest clock speeds we've seen from this chip, and some of the lowest temperatures even while running at a massive 130 watts. The same thing goes for the RTX 4080 laptop GPU. Remember, some manufacturers run this thing at its bare minimum TGP of 60 watts, but the Pro 7i pushes it to a point that'll end up beating lower powered RTX 4090s while staying pretty quiet, even in its highest performance setting. It's pretty impressive, guys. Now, all of this is possible because of the new and massively updated Cold Front 5.0 cooling system. This year, it gets updated fan blades, additional heat pipes, and larger intake and exhaust ports that you can see on the outside of the laptop when you compare each generations to one another. There's even an optional vapor chamber technology for both the CPU and the GPU on higher-end configs. Either way, this all leads to a pretty big leap in overall performance. In CPU-focused rendering apps, there's a good 20 to 40% jump in output between the 7th and 8th generation Legion Pro 7i's. And when you compare a 2023 device to that top 2021 model, well, it is even close. Rendering output speeds have also doubled in some cases, especially in something like Resolve Studio that now takes advantage of NVIDIA's dual NVENC encoders. Once that also moves to Premiere, we're going to see a huge decrease in rendering times there as well. But gaming performance is where things get really pushed into beast mode, even on an external 1440p display like we're using here, even though some games are still CPU limited too. It's amazing to see how far frame rates have improved between 2021 and now. In most cases, the difference between Gen 6 and Gen 8 models is about 50%, and in some games, a whole lot more. And remember, that older laptop was still using an RTX 3080, which is still considered one of the fastest laptop GPUs. Even against the model launched about a year ago, this new one makes some impressive jumps. And the nice thing is that while the Legion Pro 7i can be used as a desktop replacement for gaming, it's also portable enough to just tuck into a backpack and take it with you to class. That being said, there is one sacrifice though, and it's a minor one. In order to push the CPU and GPU power, Legion needed to beef up the physical size of the Cold Front 5.0 cooling system. And that means the laptop has added some thickness and weight. I mean, if you consider the performance this thing offers, it's still one of the thinnest and lightest high-end gaming laptops on the market. Legion is finally distinguishing their 5 and 7 series from one another in a bigger way. The Pro 5i is more focused on portability and keeping a thinner profile, while the Pro 7i series is being pushed more into desktop replacement territory. That means sacrificing a bit of size for higher levels of performance. And I think that's a pretty good trade-off. And speaking of design differences, there's a lot of them, guys. For the most part, Lenovo has stuck to their classic and minimal styling that we all love, but the new Pro 7i is a big departure from past generations. Both the Gen 6 and Gen 7 models share the same storm gray color theme, but the Gen 8 model has shifted to a slightly darker onyx tone, giving you a more stealthy look. Examining up close, the edges around the chassis are different too. So the 7i Gen 6 featured plastic materials with those massive and sharp vents at the back, which Legion toned down with their Gen 7 models in 2022. They also added a brushed metal trim to complement the all-aluminum chassis, which really improved the overall build quality. The new Pro 7i Gen 8 takes a lot more of a sustainable approach by implementing a combination of recycled aluminum and magnesium. I absolutely love the sustainability angle here, and the aluminum magnesium technically leads to a more robust design. But side to side, I feel like last year's Gen 7's actually feels a bit more premium. It's better to handle too, since the center of the extension at the back is slightly recessed for a better grip, whereas on the Pro 7i Gen 8, it's mostly a flat layout. I also need to point out that the I/O labels at the back were LED backlit on Gen 7, but they took that feature away on the new Pro 7i. I really miss that. And speaking of I/O, the port setup has pretty much stayed the same across all 3 generations, though speeds have increased, of course. Lenovo did shuffle them around with Gen 7, but even with the new Gen 8 model, you still get tons of connectivity. So most of them are located at the back for easier cable management. As you can see, you get access to power, USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port with DisplayPort pass-through, and power delivery up to 140 watts, which is 5 watts more than last year's model. Now that 140 watt spec is actually a big deal, since it makes the 7i compatible with the official USB PD 3.1 28 volt 140 watt charging spec. So technically, you could plug in a compatible USB-C charger and cable to top up the laptop while also using it, and that makes it a lot more adaptable as well. Other than that, there are a couple of USB Type-A ports, HDMI 2.1, and an RJ45 jack. Switching over to the left, you get a Thunderbolt 4 port and another Type-A port, and towards the right, you get another Type-A port, and an audio jack. Oddly, they did eliminate the second Thunderbolt 4 port from the Gen 7 model, which I guess is a trade-off, especially if you're getting a couple of extra USB Type-A ports. They've also toned down the RGB lighting year after year, and that's something that I can get behind. If we start with Gen 6, we had this subtle Y logo that was LED backlit with RGB customization. Gen 7 then moved the entire Legion text to RGB, and with Gen 8, they've taken away RGB with the main logo on the front lid. If you look at the exhaust vents, Gen 6 had a pretty crazy lighting show. Gen 7 took a subtle approach, and Gen 8 has no signs of RGB, but that doesn't mean that there's no RGB, because you still get that perimeter lighting, but in a different way. So both Gen 6 and Gen 7 models had lighting wrapped around the edges, kind of like a U shape, but with Gen 8, you get a single strip facing the user, and the diffusion is absolutely gorgeous, guys. The hinges were a quality control issue on Legion laptops, specifically with Gen 5. But they've certainly stepped up the quality with Gen 7 and the new Gen 8 models. They're smooth to open and have no signs of wobbling. Even the little attention to details like this notch around the webcam to help your finger get a hold of the screen is welcoming. It just makes it easier to open the lid with just one hand. So in general, these are relatively portable laptops. But to me, what seals the deal is the power adapter that you gotta lug around with you everywhere you go. And Legion laptops in general have had massive adapters, which were super unconventional. But that has changed with the new Pro 7i Gen 8, because they've trimmed it down to a much more manageable size, and it just makes it easier to accommodate it inside a backpack. Plus, it boasts a higher power rating of 330 watts versus 300 watts that came with last year's Gen 7 laptop. So props to Lenovo for making this happen. Shifting gears to the interior space, the Pro 7i Gen 8 looks a lot more toned down compared to Gen 7. The onyx gray finish also continues here with the black keycaps instead of gray on gray. It adds a nice contrast, and it's much easier to read the text this time. There's barely any keyboard flex, which just goes to show how well built this laptop really is. The layout hasn't changed. It still comes with a dedicated numpad. Lenovo's tried and trusted TrueStrike keyboard system doesn't disappoint either. It's one of the best feeling laptop keyboards on the planet. The feedback is excellent since you get 1.5mm of key travel. You also get per key RGB lighting, and that can be customized through Lenovo's Spectrum software. I do have to point out that Lenovo did eliminate the fingerprint scanner integrated into the power button with the Pro 7i Gen 8, but it was available with Gen 7 and Gen 6. I do miss that feature, but you have Windows Hello as a backup. Now, the displays on Legion laptops have always been some of the best. In fact, they were the first ones to integrate a 16:10 high refresh rate panel into the gaming laptop market. And they just keep getting better with every generation. So Gen 6 and Gen 7 models featured an IPS display with Quad HD Plus resolution and 165Hz refresh rate. Although Gen 7 did have the option to upgrade to 240Hz, these panels also offer 500 nits of peak brightness levels and G-Sync. The new Pro 7i Gen 8 makes the 240Hz panel standard across the whole range, rather than just being an option. There's also a neat little trick. If you hit Function plus R, you can quickly switch between 240Hz and 60Hz, and that change is done automatically when the laptop is unplugged to save on battery. Speaking of battery life, while it is improved over the 2022 model, Intel's 13th Gen still struggles against older laptops here, and remember that Gen 6 model uses a much smaller battery. We're still looking into what's actually causing this, since it affects every laptop we've tested in the last year, so the Legion Pro 7i isn't alone with lower battery life. Now, when you get under the hood of these laptops, upgrading the components is pretty straightforward. As always, you have quick access to 2 SOTA memory slots. Maximum supported memory is 32GB at DDR5 6000. Installing more memory is possible, but you'll lose access to that higher memory bin. The primary NVMe SSD is right over here, and if we compare the performance between all 3 laptops, there hasn't been that much improvement in both read and write speeds. But that doesn't mean that they're slow either. These are some of the fastest drives that you can get on a gaming laptop, guys. So I hope I was able to paint a clear picture in terms of the differences between Legion's 7 series from the past 3 generations. I still appreciate the fact that they've kept that classic and minimal styling without looking too gamery. The new Pro 7i Gen 8 is a lot more toned down this year. Lenovo did cut a lot of the RGB lighting, which I personally like. The color choice is also pretty stealth, though it would have been nice if they still kept that storm gray finish, just like the Gen 7 and Gen 6 series. The displays on these laptops are one of the best that you can come across on a gaming laptop. It's probably one of my most favorite features of these devices. But most importantly, the performance gains you get with the new Pro 7i is absolutely incredible. But I want to know what you guys think about the new Legion Pro 7i. Do you find the exterior changes welcoming? Are you impressed with the performance improvements over the past few years? Let us know in the comments down below. Once again, I'd like to thank Legion and Microsoft for partnering up with us in this video. Make sure to check the links in the description below if you want to browse through different configs. Stay tuned for the full review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.